session. Friends, I would like to thank Dr. Banshi and his whole team for giving me this opportunity. And then after Dr. Vinod Mittal's scientific talk, I'm going for more of a prevention, philosophical talk rather. Now, Banshi has given me as that fighting diabetes, a journey that began since childhood. I think it's a very important thing that we need to think about. Now we have this diabetes. It has been coined a long back, but it is coming true more and more prominently. Obesity causing diabetes, definitely. And then this is because of a lot of nutritional changes and lifestyle modifications that are happening in our lifetime. And you could see that a thin man becoming a obese person. If you look into that, the gene pool over the centuries is the same. There's not much of a difference in the gene pool, the so-called thrifty gene hypothesis. Now you could see that there are people who are physically active and also hunter-gatherers who are very thin. They had to fight, run and for food. And the food they used to take is also different. Actually, you can see that nuts and fruits and, even when they hunt for an animal, they don't take along with the fat and all actually during that time. And you can see that the second one is that the sedentary modern man is a couch potato with a different diet that you take, calorie dense diets that you take. And then so that what happens is that the so-called good thrifty gene has become, healthy genes at that time have become disease genes in the modern times. And then also, it also causes that signaling proteins that control metabolic homeostasis and genes encoding glucose and lipid metabolizing enzymes, indicating that I think the lifestyle modification has changed even the healthy genes into disease genes. Now, we have, along with obesity, especially when you have ectopic fats, like visceral fat and other ectopic fats, it will always increase the free fatty acids in the circulation, and this causes protein kinase activation and scores of enzymatic reactions, so that insulin becomes ineffective, insulin receptor becomes ineffective, and then it doesn't take up glucose. So insulin resistance develops because of this. Exactly what happens is because of the free fatty acids, basically because of the obesity, especially the ectopic fat that we have. And if you look into the populations that are happening, if you can see that what has happened between 1990 and 2022 in about 30 years time, you could see that even in India you can greatly see that we were undernutrition and normal nutrition, become overweight and obesity in 30 years, both in men and women. You could see that. So that India is there from blue to become whitish, and then of course we are not going into too much of obesity, but still overweight and obesity is increasing over 30 years in our even in India. If you look into that state-wise, you can see in the last 9 years or so in the National Family Health Survey 3, 4 and 5, and 6 is about to come this year, yet to be published, but we are waiting for that. But you could see that every 3 years NFHS data comes in actually. 9 years you could see that from 9 years ago and now you could see that Punjab, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh have been always leading in obesity 9 years ago, and it is increasing further due time. What is most important, you can go down here, you could see that especially the hilly regions and also the northeastern states, what you could see that where they used to walk up and down the hills and then having a lot of physical activity. Because of modernization, we can see that hardly people are going up and down by using motor vehicles. And you could see that even in the northeastern states, you could see that which was only 15 or 13 or 11 or 7 is increasing in 9 years, tripled or quadrupled. So this is what is happening in our state as well. And the most important for Indian population is that abdominal obesity. You could see that nobody is fat. 64.5% of the overweight and 73% of the obese individuals have abdominal obesity. And even about 53% of the people who got normal BMI got abdominal obesity, ectopic fat. Abdominal obesity represents ectopic fat. And then 35% of the participants also had underweight, had abdominal obesity. That means nobody is fat in India. So abdominal obesity, ectopic fat is so high in our country that they are more prone to develop diabetes at a younger age, at least 1 decade earlier compared to other populations. And then this is a big reason because of the ectopic fat that our people have, more prone to get cardiovascular disease as well. So this is what is happening, a truth that is happening in our country as well. Now look at the natural history of diabetes. If you look into the natural history of diabetes, insulin resistance happens over the time, and then you could see that during compensatory period, the insulin resistance slowly goes up, and then by the time you become over diabetic, insulin resistance fully formed, it continues to be there throughout the diabetic life. But what is happening is that during the compensatory phase, you could see that there is more insulin production, but over the time after 10 years or so, the gap between insulin resistance and the insulin production comes down, so you become pre-diabetic. Now what is most important thing what we need to do is that a compensatory phase which is about 10 to 15 years, nothing less than 10 to 15 is a compensatory period. Suppose somebody has developed a type 2 diabetes at the age of 35. That means he has been having insulin resistance for at least 15 years earlier. So that means what does it happen is that we need to look into these issues very early so that we can prevent diabetes among the generations to come later on. So this is what, if you look into the natural history of diabetes, you can understand that how 15 years, 20 years before we became diabetic, if we can take certain precautions, we can probably prevent diabetes for over the time. Now, the whole thing is that now what is happening is that pediatric obesity, which is happening now in our, not only in other countries like Western developed countries, even in our country, what you could see is that there are more than 1 billion people worldwide, about 650 million adults, and look at the 34 crore people in adolescence, and 4 crore children are having obesity. And this is going to increase and also cause a lot of diseases for them, including diabetes and other things. This is distressing. NFHS also said, National Family Health Survey also showed that 9 years earlier, the overweight amongst children less than 5 was less than 2%. After 9 years, you could see that it has doubled to 4%. So this is a problem that we are having. Actually, childhood obesity is there. And another study is Dr. Sethi et al. They have one more survey that they have shown that about 1.6 children between 0 to 4 years are having either overweight or obesity, and 4.8, almost 5% in adolescents have got between age 10 and 19%, 10 to 19 years have got overweight or obesity, and by 2030 they are predicting almost doubling of this obesity and overweight. Kumar et al., you can see that in adolescents, that is teenagers, you could see that there is almost 10% of the people are having pre-diabetes at teenagers. Again, this is because of the obesity that is happening in the childhood. So this is a very distressing thing that we could think about. The prevalence of pre-diabetes was 12.3% amongst girls and 12.3% in boys and 8.4% in girls in teenage children in our country. Now, let us not look, though it is there from childhood, the pathophysiology starts before this thing, but in fact, you have to go earlier also. That is, even the journey begins before birth itself, actually. You could see that either undernutrition or overnutrition can cause DNA methylation, histone modification, and so that metabolic disorders such as obesity, glucose intolerance, insulin resistance, lipid profile disorders can happen at the early stage of the life again. This is what we see with the Barker's hypothesis. Why this is happening? If the more insulin, what happens is that if a lot of insulin is there during the maternal blood glucose, increases the macrosomia, and in the milieu, it also exhausts beta cells in vitro. And then if we have undernutrition, we have less development of beta cells, and so that you develop diabetes at an early age. So this is a old one actually. And the most important thing is that the childhood obesity is not only for type 2 diabetes. You could see that can increase LADA, and it can also have severe insulin deficient diabetes and severe insulin resistant diabetes, mild obesity related diabetes, and mild age related diabetes, childhood obesity. Not only just type 2 diabetes, there are other things also that can happen. So higher levels of childhood adiposity had positive genetically predicted effects on all the types of diabetes that can happen, including LADA. Now, why is this happening? I think one of the things that we are having amongst our children is that the SSBM. That SSB is nothing but sugar sweetened beverages. As in children and adolescents, is the main thing for obesity. You could see that there is a lot of calories in this in the sweetened drinks actually. So that the more calories you take and less calories you spend, the obesity develops. And also, the sugars, sweetened beverages also are associated with increased systolic blood pressure levels in children and a greater risk of developing hypertension later in life. And also, there has been a positive association between the SSB and multiple cardiovascular risk factors such as higher LDL, especially triglyceride levels and low HDL levels. We are genetically like that, and this will increase further the problem of the lipid profiles as well. So I think also that because of all the changes that can happen, even in children, you can see the dysglycemia and diabetes, and no doubt why the teenager children were having about 10% of children are having IGT amongst our children. And of course, they'll immediately, if you don't intervene there, I think they will be developing more and more diabetes in future. Now, other thing is that inadequate sleep. You could see that the lot of sleep disturbances are happening even in our children. And we could see that short duration and poor quality and poor architecture of the sleep can increase HPA axis drive, increase cortisol levels, which increase the preference for energy dense foods, and also inhibition of insulin, increase insulin resistance because of cortisol. And apart from that, there will be increased SNS activity, so that there is inhibition of leptin and increase hunger and decrease satiety. So you could see that sleep can have a disturbed sleep amongst our children can have so many issues, so that there is already a genetic predisposition, so that they develop obesity, and also type 2 diabetes can happen amongst our children. This is one of the things that we don't realize it actually, the sleep. Now, the screen time. This is another thing, the screen time, which I think most of the younger parents are also using, giving the mobile phones, the smartphones to children, and they operate better than what we can do. That's a different issue. But what is happening is that because of the screen time, they keep sitting down, they don't go for play, so that they don't exercise, so that less glucose use, poor sleep, and unhealthy slacking during that time can also increase obesity, and then that will lead to problem actually. Now look at the economic burden. As of now, we are spending about in India about 0.8% of our GDP towards that. And this is supposed to increase 19-fold in the next 30 years or so. So that is amount of GDP that we need to spend for health, especially for overweight and obesity in future as well. So it's got a lot of economic burden as well that we can think about. But the issue is that 50% of the type 2 diabetes is preventable, and then we need to identify and modifiable risk factors early to prevent them from the diabetes occurring. One of the things what we need to do is that BMI monitoring in children, especially a GDM, a mother has delivered a child, we have to take care of them actually. So that you could see that increased weight in all growth periods in childhood is associated with increase in type 2 diabetes, and increase in weight in adolescents is a greater problem in developing diabetes very early. So monitoring BMI amongst children is a duty that we need to look into that. And of course, calorie restriction, we know that both low energy diets and as well as low carb diets, both can cause weight reduction, so that we can have a good, healthy children for future. Physical activity, preschool children, throughout the day they need to do that. And children and adolescents between 6 and 17, at least 60 minutes, 1 hour every day they need to do that. Vigorous exercise has to be implicated amongst our children, so that we can prevent obesity and overweight amongst these people. Community empowerment initiatives such as Poshan 2, indicating that we have to give a proper nutrition to the children. Eat Right India, and then more physical activities such as Kelo India. All these things have to be community-based empowerment initiatives be taken by us. And then school health programs is a very, very important thing. Nutrition education, for example, Eat Right in the school. You can different steps so that identify children and train them to take a healthy food. And then if we achieve the achieve the weight loss, we have to give them a certificate or something like that. And also, we got that Food Safety and Standards Authority of India has created a magic box which has got a food safety books and all are available for us to use them. And then this is another program that we need to look into that. Diabetes awareness in schools. This is actually idea of initiative. And then we could see that especially in the parent-teacher meetings, we need to look, we tell them to look into how the nutrition has to be changed, increase the physical activity. And in Tamil Nadu RSSDA, we are going to take this initiative shortly. From next month, we are going to schools for parent-teacher meetings and going to teach them how to prevent diabetes amongst them. Limit the screening time. During the weekdays, only 1 hour and not more than that. And during weekends, maximum is 2 hours. If you do that, so that the rest of the time they can go for some physical activity. Like, evening walks or cycling, family games or sports, dance or yoga sessions. We need to inculcate these habits to children. Unless parents do that, children are not going to do that. We need to change first, and then so that the children also could change. That's a very, very important thing that we can see that. So friends, let me tell you that the intergenerational risk of diabetes and obesity, it starts during pregnancy, and then in postnatal and adult life, we need to take certain precautions. And then in childhood, we need to increase the physical activity, and then also encourage healthy eating, especially in adolescents and young adults, and so that we can prevent overweight and obesity. And this is a most important message that we could get, so that we can do that. Now, is there any evidence to say that? There is one excellent study that has been done in Greek children in Greece. They have taken about 3,600 boys and girls. All these boys and girls had central obesity. And what they put them on the diet, because they're from Mediterranean country, they had a Mediterranean diet, increased physical activity levels and improved sleeping hours, so that they were able to reduce overweight and obesity among these children, so that in future they don't develop diabetes as well. As far as healthcare professions is concerned, these are the things that we need to look into. Obtain genetic information and medical history, counsel about comorbid conditions, monitor BMI regularly amongst children and adolescents, address diet and exercise issues throughout childhood and adolescence, address the psychological aspects of obesity, and provide parents with simple recommendations. Parents is the most important thing I feel. Encourage active parenting. So definitely, friends, you could see that investing in healthy mothers and children today means fewer diabetics tomorrow. And this is the motto that we need to look into that. And let me conclude to say that type 2 diabetes prevention begins before birth, and also childhood obesity is a critical intervention point. Healthy lifestyle from childhood, lower risk of diabetes in adulthood is a fact, is a dream that we need to think about. Thank you for your patient hearing.